As the fourth ship of the Essex class, the Kearsarge, shortly after named Hornet, became an important part of the offensive carrier groups meant to strike airfields and naval bases. The carrier was laid down on August 3, 1942, launched on August 30, 1943, and commissioned in the end of November in the same year. As an Essex class, her standard displacement was at 27,500 tons. Overall length was at 872 feet or 265.8 meters. Waterline beam was at 93 feet or 28.3 meters, and draft at full load was at 34 feet 2 inches or just over 10.4 meters. 8 Babcock and Wilcox boilers generated 150,000 shaft horsepower. 4 shafts connected to 4-geared steam turbines gave the carrier the speed of 33 knots. Multiple early warning radars and some fire control as well as surface search radars were fitted. Armament consisted of 4 twin and 4 single 5-inch 38 caliber guns, 8 quadruple 40mm Bofors and 46 single 20mm Oerlikons. She usually carried between 91 and 103 aircraft. The island was on the starboard side. The carrier had a wooden flight deck and 3 elevators. Hornet departed Norfolk on February 1944 to join Task Force 58 when she arrived in March. Her first action with the fleet was the attack in the Palau Islands and the coastal roads. After some aerial mine laying, the task force steamed south of the naval base at Truk. Once they were spotted, the combined fleet was ordered to retreat to the Philippines. As Task Force 58 approached its target on March 30th, the carriers launched a fighter sweep that shot down 30 Zeros, which were already airborne. 39 Avengers with magnetic mines dropped their payload to bottle up around 40 enemy ships in the coastal roads. 32 ships were sunk by American aircraft in the end of March. American pilots claimed to shoot down 63 aircraft and over 100 on the ground while losing 25 aircraft of their own. On their way back to Majuro, the carriers attacked targets in WWII in April 1st with little effect. Before the departure on April 13th, Hornet and 3 Independence-class carriers plus escorts made up Task Force 58.1, and this force was ordered to attack Sarmi, Sawar and Wagda airfields in New Guinea. Fighters of the American force shot down a pair of G4 Embedis off New Guinea. This force later joined Task Force 58 and they withdrew to the Mariana Islands in the end of April for replenishment before heading out to strike Truk. These ships were spotted and an airstrike was launched but was quickly intercepted by 84 Hellcats from all carriers, and these aircraft opposed 60 Zeros. Over the next 2 days, 9 aircraft were lost to accidents and 27 in combat, mostly shot down by anti-aircraft guns from Truk. The American aviators claimed 59 aircraft shot down in the air and 34 on the ground. While returning, Task Force 58.1 detached to cover bombardments of the airfields on Satawan and Ponape. Task Force 58 arrived at Majuro on May 4th and spent the next month preparing for the Mariana and Palau Islands campaign. By June, Task Group 58.1 exchanged an Independence-class carrier for Hornet's sister Yorktown, another carrier with a name from a previous ship lost in the early part of World War II. Task Force 58 departed Majuro on June 6th to begin airstrikes on the southern Marianas. Hornet's night fighters began shooting down Japanese recon aircraft on the night of June 10th. 30 Zeros were spotted over Guam during their fighter sweep, and Hornet's 16 Hellcats claimed to shoot down 23 of them. Task Groups 58.1 and 58.4 combined and attacked Japanese air bases at Bonin Islands. On June 15th, fighters from the 2 carrier task forces conducted sweeps over Iwo Jima, Hahajima, and Chichijima, claiming to shoot down 20 Zeros for the cost of 2 Hellcats over Iwo Jima. Soon after, American carriers claimed to have destroyed a total of 81 aircraft for the loss of 4 aircraft in combat and 7 in accidents. Then the Operation Ago began in mid-June 1944. The aircraft from Task Group 58.1 patrolled over Orote Field. Dogfights would be fought in the air while Hornet sent out Helldivers and Avengers to strike the airfield. The first major wave of Japanese aircraft in the Battle of the Philippine Sea was spotted, and the American carriers launched 140 fighters. These aircraft were later joined by the fighters patrolling over Guam, but they would arrive too late. Hornet's Hellcats claimed to have shot down 9 Zeros and 3 B-6 and Jill torpedo bombers. Hornet's aircraft did not participate in the second wave. Then in the third wave, Hornet's fighters claimed to have shot down 9 Zeros. Some aircraft from the fourth wave got intercepted by Hornet, Essex, Cowpens, and Enterprise. 40 out of 49 Japanese aircraft were shot down. Then a counterattack was launched to strike the Japanese ships, and Hornet's aircraft damaged Zuikaku, while other aircraft sank Hio. Many aircraft ran out of fuel in the retreat, but most of the crews were rescued. Follow-on attacks were launched on Japanese bases and aircraft, shooting down most of them. During that time, Task Force 58 was redesignated as Task Force 38. Hornet's Task Group 38.1 attacked the Palaos in early September and then Mindanao on the 9th. Various airstrikes were launched in the Philippines, one of them sank the destroyer Satsuki. Air attacks were made between the Ryukyu Islands and Formosa and in the northern Philippines. In October, Japanese night attacks crippled the heavy cruiser Canberra. Task Group 38.1 covered the cruiser, but another attack crippled the light cruiser Houston with a torpedo. Almost 600 aircraft were shot down during the attacks. The task group was too far away to support the American ships off the coast of Samar in the morning of October 25th, but during Korea's retreat, Avengers from Hornet and Cowpen sank the light cruiser Noshiro. The task group, combined with task groups 38.2 and 38.3, continued to strike Japanese bases and sank the heavy cruiser Nachi, an oiler, and a cargo ship in Luzon. Multiple attacks on Japanese ships and various airfields followed, one of them sinking the heavy cruiser Kumano. Kamikaze attacks started to damage many American ships by the end of 1944 and start of 1945. Task Force 38 sailed into Typhoon Cobra in December 1944, where many American ships rolled and received damage. 146 aircraft were lost during the typhoon. Raids in the South China Sea started in 1945, and the amount of kamikazes only increased, heavily damaging the carrier attack on the Roga. Then came the support of the landings at Iwo Jima, and various strikes were sent off to the Japanese home islands. Once Iwo Jima fell and Okinawa began, US Navy air losses were roughly 1-to-1 ratio. Small kamikaze attacks caused concern as they were much harder to spot on radar, and the carrier Franklin was heavily damaged because of this. And then came the attack on Yamato's group in Operation Tango. In June, another typhoon appeared, and just like before, multiple ships got damaged. Hornet's flight deck got heavily damaged at the bow by a large wave. She sailed back for repairs, and after repairs, she took part in Operation Magic Carpet before going to reserve. During the war, she received 9 battle stars and claimed to shot down 1,410 Japanese aircraft. Over 1.2 million tons of shipping sunk or assisted in sinking it. By the early 1950s, the carrier was back after modifications. Hornet was redesignated as CV12. She shot down 2 Chinese aircraft, which shot down a British airliner. In 1955, she retreated to receive an angled flight deck. And after completion, she was used as an anti-submarine carrier and also recovered various spacecraft and astronauts. As the 1960s rolled on, she operated off Vietnam several times. When Apollo 11 splashed down, the carrier recovered Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins. Hornet will also recover astronauts of Apollo 12, and the carrier ended her career in 1970. By 1998, she was restored and turned into a museum ship in California.